I'd like to call this meeting to order. Is Jeff Davis, ROTC here? No. Okay. Yeah, let's just stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looking around me, I believe we have a quorum. If everyone would take a moment and look at the agenda, if we can get an approval of that.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the revised agenda as printed.
I second.
All in favor signify by raising of hands. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Mr. Salter.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We had planned to recognize several students this month, but because we had to reschedule the meeting for the middle of the day, we're going to have it back in February. However, there are still some folks we want to thank today, including our employees of the month. Can we ask, first of all, President and Superintendent, if you'll come up, and we want to encourage Curtis Daniels and Antonio Hamilton to please come forward.
And Mr. Salter, I would also like the representatives from Jeff Davis and Impact to come join us.
Okay, fantastic. Come on in. Marcia Ball, who's the Director of Career Tech and Principal and Chief Cook and Bottle Washer at Impact. Curtis Daniels is the Law and Public Safety Instructor at Impact. He served with the Montgomery Police Department for 24 years, and 18 of those years in the Juvenile Division as a School Resource Officer for Lee High School. He received the Purple Heart and Medal of Valor for injuries sustained while attempting to apprehend a fleeing felon in 2002. Mr. Daniels began his teaching career at Sidney Lanier High School as the public safety instructor before transitioning to Impact. This public safety program is now one of the most popular and successful career tech programs in Montgomery Public Schools. Let's give him a great big hand. By the way, Bobby Cruz told me a few minutes ago that if he was going through a door, he'd want this guy right there with him. Help him. Antonio Hamilton joined MPS as a security guard at Lee High School in October of 2017. Attentive and meticulous, he earned the respect of the students and developed an outstanding relationship with the school's administration and staff. Recently, he was transferred to Jeff Davis High School, where he continues to impress. He's always willing to work hard and go the extra mile to make sure our schools are safe. Whether it's working in traffic in the rain or working extracurricular activities, or even stopping to help a student with a problem or a need. Let's give Mr. Hamilton a big round of applause. In addition to that wonderful certificate suitable for framing that you just got, we also have for each of you a $25 gift card. That is courtesy of Baptist Health. Baptist Health Services sponsored our gift cards, and we wish it was $1 billion, but unfortunately the Ethics Commission said $25, so that's all you get. Let's give them one more round of applause and thank them for their hard work and their service. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you.
Let's get back to work.
Break's over. Back to work. February is my favorite month of the year. Of course, it's Valentine's Day, and it's National Heart Month, and it's my birthday. I'm registered at the Harley-Davidson place, if anybody's interested. And it's also African American History Month. And so the board would like to have this resolution proclaiming it National, or rather African American History Month for Montgomery Public Schools. Whereas the month of February is designated as African American History Month in the United States of America, And whereas Montgomery Public Schools joins the nation in celebrating the innumerable contributions of African American citizens to our great nation, state, and the world. And whereas those contributions include many important events that happened in Montgomery County, Alabama, including the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ms. Rosa Parks, Mr. E.D. Nixon, Mrs. Johnny Carr, and so many others that are well known to history, as well as those who impacted quietly and unrecognized, and those who continue to work today to make our world more united. And whereas Montgomery Public Schools serves a diverse community and seeks to promote understanding of all cultures within our community. And whereas the Montgomery Public Schools joins with school systems across the state of Alabama and our nation in this recognition and celebration of the scientific, artistic, spiritual, intellectual, political, business, and cultural contributions of African Americans to the United States. Therefore, be it resolved this day, January 31st, 2019, the Montgomery County Board of Education proclaims February 2019 as African American History Month and encourages all Montgomery Public Schools to engage in activities and programs designed to learn about and honor the contributions of African Americans. And the board members will sign this, and we will put it in a nice frame so everybody can see it. And we have one final thing we'd like to do today. We want to thank 7 people who don't often hear those words. January is School Board Recognition Month. We want to pause for a moment, thank our board members for countless hours of listening, calming, thinking, answering, and most of all, caring for over 29,000 Montgomery Public School students and their families. It is unbelievably inadequate that Mr. Watts wouldn't let me give you the $1 billion that you all deserve as a bonus. So we'll just have to settle for this. Dr. Moore has a certificate for each of you. And we hope that that helps to convey the thanks of our students, parents, and staff for all your hard work. And one more time, thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. It's a real privilege to sit here, I'll tell you. On our scheduled public comments, let me first ask if we have, is there anyone here who has signed up for public comments today? Okay, I know we were rearranged from Tuesday, so we're gonna, and there was no one that signed up for. Am I correct? There's no one here for a scheduled public? Mr. Purnell? Okay. Mr. Purnell, hindsight, insight, foresight?
Yep.
You? No. Oh, I need to read this. These are the rules for public participation in board meetings. Requests must be made in advance in writing to the superintendent's office by 4:30 on the Tuesday preceding the meeting date. Requests must have specified the nature of the business to be taken up with the board and the name of the person who will address the board to be added to the agenda. Communications must be respectful. Discussing specific student or employee matters will not be allowed. Individuals who have concerns that are inappropriate to be solved in this venue are welcome to seek a problem-solving meeting with the superintendent. Immediate feedback by the board may not be provided. However, you may be contacted for follow-up by the superintendent or designee. Public comments may not exceed 5 minutes. The board chairman has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the board chairman, or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat out of the auditorium and/or off of NPS property, depending on the level of disruption. Mr. Purnell?
Oh,
You're
yeah, President Comes in fact. Thank you. Again, good afternoon. My topic of discussion today is hindsight, insight, and foresight. And hindsight reflects that on January 11th, 1944, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, during his State of the Union address, declared a second Bill of Rights, wherein every American has the right to a job, adequate wage, and decent living, decent home, medical care, economic protection during sickness, accident, old age, or unemployment. And the sixth one is why I'm here, a good education. May 17, 1954, Brown Board of Education of Topeka declared separate but equal unconstitutional. And it is this separate but equal thing that's bothering me within education in Montgomery Public Schools. Insight reflects that we are not evolving, but evolving educationally. Somehow we are regressing in Montgomery to a time past of separate but equal again. Magnet schools and specialized schools have created a brain drain of the intellectual capacity of the regular school system. And now the incipiency of charter schools is making its presence felt. Educational entities of this type benefit only a portion of the student population holistically, while the majority of the student population is underserved. We are returning, although unconsciously, to a benign, separate but equal educational environment that will prove over the long term that separation in lieu of integration will only prevent us as a society in Montgomery from becoming better through unification and education. Insight reflects that we do not have that now. My educational skill set came from public school teachers, who diligently and sternly taught me to learn my alphabets. My public school teachers taught me the difference between vowels and consonants. My public school teachers taught me the 8 parts of speech and how each aspect of each speech intertwined with the other 7 parts simultaneously with the knowledge of punctuation. My learned skill set allowed me to master the art of communication. My entire foundation of education came from a bona fide, tried, and true-tested public education system in Montgomery, not from some cornucopia field with a hodgepodge of educational mixture that has created inequality within our public schools. Every child is not going to graduate from high school to go to college. Every child is not going to be handed with their hands. Every child has a right to an education that equips him and her with the requisite skill set that will allow him and her to make a reasonable decision about their path in life. Foresight reflects that the mistakes of the past ought to be lessons learned so as not to be repeated again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purnell. Is there anyone else who was signed up for scheduled comments? If not, we have no one sign up for citizen comments, so we're going to go into received as information. And we will start with the letter of engagement with that. More?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So if you remember last time we met, we talked about the possibility of having Attorney Ziegler, who works with the referendums and all of the laws related to having an increase in your ad valorem or millage in your particular county or city or whatever. So he does all of the work on reviewing and researching all of the particular entities that will impact what you can do in your particular county, in this case in Montgomery, and how you have to do it. And so At our last meeting, you gave me the nod to go ahead and at least contact him and get some information from him about this process. And so, we had a phone call, conversation about it, and he, made me aware that he would send to me a letter of engagement for your review as a board, so that you can decide whether or not you want to, use his services. So what you have here, is the letter from Mr. Ziegler's firm regarding, his, process and how he would, go about, billing, using, his expertise to help the board. Of course, this is something you all have to agree to. And so, for me, I could not say to him, yes, go ahead with it. So he sent me his information in writing, and that's what you have, before you can have.
The only question I would have is, did he give any idea of how much time it takes to do this?
He did not in our conversation, he just specified in writing, before we were engaged. I'm thinking that, we can have some additional information or discussion with him. If you want to set a limit, I wouldn't say because it's too short, because you can get right in the middle of it and then stop and then the work that he's doing. So if you'd like me to, I can ask him to give me a ballpark, projection of how much time it might take.
I would like to, I think that's important because he's given us his hourly rate, which is very, very high to me. And time would be important.
Okay, I can ask him.
And is there a cap?
I think you all might could set the cap if you wanted to. Let me get the ballpark of what he thinks it might take. And, because he's done this several times before, many times, I shouldn't say several, many times before. And he could probably tell me about how much time he believes it would take to research the information.
You know, I think this would be very important to also the county commission, and we might want to look into sharing, the cost with the, county commission.
All right, so I have a phone call.
Have we had contact with the county commission? Is that something they're interested in, or we're just gonna reach out?
Well, as a matter of fact, just saw, the chairman Dean just a few minutes ago, and I mentioned it to him that we were gonna be talking about it, and was there interest in the commission sharing in the cost? And he said, let me know what we're talking about, and he will take it to them and see if there's a possibility.
Okay, my other question was about the contract. The second paragraph, is there any way he can, I'm interested in what he means in the second paragraph and who he's talking about. So, it was just a little vague for me. I just wanted some clarity, you know.
So are you looking for, people or agencies or systems that he's working for? In the
Yeah,
second
because
paragraph, you want examples, or you want him to name some places that he's
Yes.
worked with before? Okay.
And I agree, with Erica on that, because, you know, the fee is, to me, is astronomical. And when you've already got other people that are gonna do this, when you look at what happened in Butler County last night, not just Montgomery County, if we're gonna be spending all this money, when somebody else is gonna do it anyway, this is money our public school system, in my opinion, can say, if it's gonna be astronomical.
The only thing I would say is that this is the go-to person that helps these things get through. And in my mind, just from what I've read and a little bit I've studied on it, he's the one that can help get it through.
And I'm familiar with, I actually spoke with the Butler County Superintendent who gave high reviews on him. And although it didn't pass with them, but he was very detailed in how he got it done. Their system was about as complex, not maybe as complex, but similarly complex as ours. And so he shared with me how Mr. Ziegler went about configuring it all out. So I mean, he comes with high reviews since they just had the recent election, and I just so happened to reach out to that superintendent.
Madam President, I tend to, focus on success rate. I mean, I know he does this, but if any way we can find out if it was fruitful, I mean, helping the system, but if he helped with whatever, and then he didn't tell us just what the pitfalls were, you know, what did he learn from his other experiences when it did not pass. And I tend to agree with Claudia that, if we're going to look into this, then we either need to have some help, maybe the county commission, since they're talking about it as well. I don't think we need to take on this responsibility by ourselves. And I too looked at the $450 an hour. That's a lot of money when you're just doing research, and you should have, something together already that you've done for other systems that you wouldn't have to do as much for us if you have this kind of plan in place. I'm concerned about the amount per hour and about, well, we have not set a cap or a time frame or whatever. So let's just kind of talk to you as president and superintendent, maybe talk to the county commission and see how much of this they're willing to, you know.
I think it would be helpful when we know about how much it should cost. Cause I agree, I mean, an open checkbook is not a good thing here.
Right, and for $450 an hour, when you've done this before, you should have a blueprint by now if he's as good as everybody's saying he is.
So let me, I have one, so I'll see some more information from him. So let me add though a little bit of clarity. The research is particular to a particular area, such as Montgomery may be different from Butler, and so the rules and the laws and the legislative acts that have been passed are maybe just in that area. And so we will work on what does it take to make it happen, the how of how you make it happen in Montgomery County. Now, beyond that, he can't guarantee that it will pass. But he will tell you about how to go about getting it on the ballot, more or less, because that's the end result, you get it on the ballot and people vote. So in between all that, we have to do a lot of work, everybody has to do a lot of work. It's kind of like a campaign, as I said before. But I will seek more information from him to see how much detail I can get from him regarding this, and to see if he can give me a projected amount of time that it would take for him to do the research for us in November. And then we'll get that working on that.
And we'll continue to try to develop a relationship with the county commission and, you know, strive to, because they want this as much as we do. I think we're all singing off the same page on that.
And there may be others, business and others that might want to help support it so that it doesn't all, or maybe sometimes in some cases, none of it comes out of the school board's finances. But we can seek that, we can see if we can find others who will help support this particular research that we do. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any more discussion on that? If not, we're gonna, Mr. Mitchell's gonna talk with us about the Renaissance learning.
Good afternoon, Board President Will, Vice Chair Mitchell, Board members, Dr. Moore. In your packet, we're requesting approval of a Renaissance contract for fiscal year 2019 in the amount of $431,960.24 for all 40 KK students. We believe it will be a high impact literacy component that will help us increase learning by increasing literacy. I want to bring up Ms. Cooley, which will speak more to the program.
Good afternoon, my name is Christy Coley, and I am just honored to be here with you guys today. Just quickly, I represent a huge army of Renaissance employees who are family and excited to partner with you all towards meeting your literacy goals. So I'm gonna just yourself, I believe. Thank you so much. Renaissance mission is to accelerate learning for all children and adults of all ability levels and ethnic and social backgrounds worldwide. And that's really the goal of our partnership that we're entering into with Montgomery Public Schools, is because we want to provide a solution, a literacy solution that is proven through history and innovative for the future. And I'd like to share just a couple of things about that. This past summer, MyOn, which is one of Renaissance's newer products, which is a digital library I'm going to share with you, was privileged to be chosen by Governor Ivey as the Alabama Summer Achievement Program Independent Reading Piece. We were in 3 of Montgomery Public Schools this summer: Stanley, Fitzpatrick, Highland Avenue. And for 5 weeks, we tracked the usage of MyOn, this digital literacy platform, at the summer program. So 486 students read almost 13,000 books in 5 weeks, which honestly, when we looked at that before, and I'm a 12-year Montgomery resident, and so I was so excited to have the opportunity to see growth and response from the school children from Montgomery Public Schools. So read almost 13,000 books, spent over 800 hours of reading. We were able to track the time that's spent during the reading day, before school, during the school day, obviously the majority, but after school and on the weekends. So 8% of the books that were read during that 5-week period were actually out of the school day. I have a great story. I was in Talladega County recently working with their school district. A teacher came up to me and she said, I've worked at Montgomery Public Schools this summer in their summer school program. She said, I have to tell you the story. She said that there was a mother of a child who is an English language learner. The mother is also an English language learner. The mother approached the summer school teacher and said, how can I get my student on MyOn so that we as a family can read together? The teacher directed them to the Montgomery Public Library, where the student and the family actually all went together over the weekend to read these books. So if that's not success, if that's not what we're looking for, then I really can't, I don't know what is. So also, next, the student growth that we saw in that 5-week period, students took over 7,000 quizzes, and every student, we saw an average of Lexile growth over that 5-week period, 3.6 points, which is unheard of. And so 24 students had over 50 points of Lexile growth in 5 weeks, which is about a half of a grade level. And we had 2 students that grew over 100 points. So obviously, after that, I could not contain my excitement and came bounding here to Montgomery Public Schools and said, look at what happened and look at what can happen. So next. So what we're offering, what we are wanting to partner with you is what we are considering a leap for literacy. Renaissance is, like I said, 30-year-old company with STAR assessments, with Accelerated Reader, which is a very tried and true program, and then adding this new digital piece, MyOn. Renaissance has chosen Montgomery Public Schools to be the research site for our company for the next 2 years, which means that we will track your data. We will come alongside you and partner with you to assess students, watch them grow, and then report back. So it's a very exciting time for Renaissance. Right, next. Like I said, STAR 360, just a brief overview, includes STAR Reading, STAR Math, STAR Early Literacy, STAR Custom. These are assessments, not anything different than what many of your schools already use. And then next, and then Spanish, there's a Spanish component as well. And next. So, and then after they assess, they're engaged in reading. The traditional Accelerated Reader program, which has kind of gotten an upgrade, and then MyOn Reader, which is what we're focusing on today. So MyOn Reader, what was used this summer in the summer school program, is 6,000 books. They all have ISBN numbers, they are authentic text, they count towards a marked record. These books are based, the system is based on Wi-Fi, web-based program that actually recommends books based on students' interests, their Lexile level, and their grade level. It has audio support and highlighting. Students can read on any device. So therefore, they can read in online and offline setting. Children can download books to a device, to a smartphone, to a tablet, to a Chromebook, read at home, offline, and when they come back to the Wi-Fi setting, it syncs back. If there is Wi-Fi at McDonald's, or at their church, or the YMCA down the street, then they can use that Wi-Fi and read as well. Another piece that I'm most excited, well, not most excited about, obviously I'm excited about all of it, but My Eye News is a current event source that is used. It's 5 articles a day, 5 days a week, with Lexile bands, so for students to use current also. And this is really the last thing I want to tell you, is that part of what we're asking, or what we're looking at, is a project management. So there will be an actual person who will be assigned and hired for Montgomery Public Schools to manage all of this, so that we are going to push this to fidelity. We are going to make certain that not only the things that are used, but we want to really transform literacy in Montgomery Public Schools. And again, the fact that you've been selected to be the research side for our company is really an honor, and it's an honor for me to get to work with you on that. So thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I have a comment in that I'm just elated and excited that you're here.
Thank you.
I just attended a training on this on Monday, and the results have been phenomenal. I mean, I've watched students that were on the 1.8 level, supposed to be in the 6th grade, actually come up, and the people that are doing the training actually engage with these teachers. I know when I was there, we were sitting there, they would give you problems as a group, and they would separate you and pretend, you were doing 1st grade or 2nd grade, 8th grade, whatever. And you had to pick, you had scenarios, and then you had to pick what book you would choose. The kids are loving it. So, I think the whole deal with accelerated reading is phenomenal.
Right.
And kids, when you have kids reading and they want to read, and you start them young like this, it's exciting.
Well, and that honestly is, such an interesting point, is that I think a lot of in education, and I taught school for 20 years, but a lot in education, we kind of come back to the foundational part that how do we become better readers? We got to read that. There's no other way around it. We can theorize about it, we can talk about it, we can beat kids on the head with books, but until they read a book, they're not going to. It's just like any other sport or any other skill. You have to practice to become better.
Well, and we appreciate your enthusiasm too.
It's hard not to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to share one more thing. I want to first of all thank, Coach, because this is Title IV funds that's paying for it. It's not from general. So make sure you know that. And also, Ms. Rudolph, this is one partnership that we really want. And I told her that we must implement it with fidelity. If not, then we will talk some more. So it's very important for me that you know that.
I have a question, Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, yeah.
And they'll be short questions. Are we doing the reading, start reading, and start math, or just reading?
Everything, in reading comprehensively. Mine is everything with reading. We may add on math if we like what we're seeing with reading, but we want to make sure that we did reading across the board. Because
Start math
Start math is in there.
yes.
But comprehensively, it's all areas of reading.
And the early literacy, will we be implementing
Yes,
that?
yes.
And what about, how will it align with Wonders, Ingenuity, Performance Series?
It's a direct alignment, it's standard based, and we know that as soon as we're reading more here, we will handle all of our standards to fidelity.
Can I
Yes.
respond to that? Let me answer this too. Renaissance is a Growth Alliance partner with Ingenuity, so actually what will happen is we will sync our systems together. And so when you're putting students on the learning path, they will use the Ingenuity as well. So yes.
And Wonders as well?
Wonders, yes. We worked alongside Wonders this summer in Montgomery Public in the summer school program. And Myon was able to be that independent piece, that digital library that walked, because Wonders is a curriculum, so we support curriculum.
And what about Performance Series?
Performance Series, right, I mean, again, the same kind of thing, we're side-by-side partners. Ingenuity, we're linked partners, but others were side by side. And that's the other thing, the beauty of the project management, honestly, is the ability to be able to have somebody to actually make that happen without having to assign somebody else in this building that job, honestly. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. Okay, next up we have, Dr. Nettles is gonna tell us about the superintendent's evaluation.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You should have received in your packet the superintendent's evaluation estimate. And so for that reason, we're not going to put it up as a PowerPoint. There are just some things that I want to highlight out of the process and then answer any questions that you have. Can everyone hear me? Yes. So let's talk about the purpose first. The purpose of the evaluation instrument for the superintendent is to assess performance and serve as a tool to develop individual growth and school system progress. The instrument is designed to promote leader effectiveness and professional growth. So the instrument does two things. It helps support the superintendent individually as a leader, and then how the superintendent interacts and facilitates the growth of the district. We always want to put in place that the instrument that was developed is based on national standards. The State Department several years ago determined that school system superintendent evaluations would be the responsibility of the superintendent of the school system. So our school system developed an instrument for implementation. And that instrument was developed using Alabama standards for instructional leaders, the Advanced Ed standards, and the American Association of Standards for School Systems for school administrators. So that's important because when you think about what the state has done for evaluations over the last several years, everything is aligned to a set of state standards. So we have also aligned our superintendent's evaluation process to those same standards. The superintendent's evaluation process is designed to, I want to say mimic, but that's not the correct word. It's to be consistent, it's designed to be consistent with and model the state's process. So, in saying that, let me say this. The systems, for certified teachers and for our classified employees, the evaluation system has a self-assessment, it has performance indicators, and then there's the opportunity to present supporting evidence, and then there's an evaluation there's a compilation evaluation based on that information. And that's the way the superintendent's evaluation is set up. There's a self-assessment, there's an opportunity to interact with performance indicators, a professional learning plan, and then you all do that final evaluation at the end based on all of that information. Does all that make sense? I'm still with you. All right, if you flip the page to page 5, the document to page 5. I want to point out that the evaluation timeline is modified. The evaluation timeline is modified because our board members did not come in, were not elected until the end of last year, which was well into the contract period. But the evaluation still has to take place, so we needed to modify the timeline. In the next cycle after 2020, we'll go back to what is the extended version of the evaluation instrument. Ms. Cliff, would you make sure my phone is off? I don't want it to be me. Okay. Keeping in mind that the superintendent's contract ends June 30th, 2020, we backed up everything from that point. That's my first marker, when the contract ends. But then the second marker is when the board has to notify the superintendent of whether or not the contract will be extended or not. And that must happen in December of 2019. So we had to back up, we had to consolidate the whole process into this year. So in January and February, the superintendent will complete the self-assessment. I know this is February, just about. But she'll complete the self-assessment and then collaborate with her senior cabinet and with the board to develop those professional learning objectives. And that pretty much indicates where she wants to go professionally and where we want to take the system for the duration of this evaluation period. In July and August, we will complete the midpoint evaluation, and that gives the board an opportunity to look at the progress that's been made, although you'll be aware of the progress all along, but it allows you to see the progress that's been made, take a benchmark opportunity, and then give feedback to the superintendent about what you're seeing, where we're going, how do we want to end up, what is the end result, and whether or not we're gonna meet that final end game. In the fall, the superintendent will use that information you've provided in the summer to recalibrate the professional learning objectives that have been developed in January and February. And then in December, the superintendent will present completed activities related to the professional learning plan. And then the board gets an opportunity to look at that documentation and then provide a summative response. Everybody feel good? Okay. So let's flip the page for just a moment. Let me also say, while we're flipping pages, that the composite score for the superintendent is a collaborative score from all board members. So within each section that I'm going to show you in just a moment, there's score opportunities for each individual board member. Every standard will have a compiled average, and then all of those 7 areas will create a compiled average composite score. I can say it, I can do it in an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm not a math major. So if you have any questions, you have to let me process it so I can get it out straight. Everybody good? All right. There's a page in the document that does explain this word for word.
It's page 9.
Thank you. It's page 9 and 9. Yours is page 9, and so it has that entire breakdown. Are there any questions about that? Thank you, Ms. Williams. We good? Let's talk about the rating scale. My rating scale is on page 10, and I think yours may be on 11 or 12. Page 8, okay. The rating scale goes from 5 to 1. 5 being exemplary, acknowledging that the work performance is far exceeding expectations. 4, above expectations, in that it acknowledges that there is a consistency of high levels of performance. Then there is level 3, which meets expectations. What is going on with the superintendent and the development of the system is consistent with what we expected. Level 2 is below expectations, indicating and acknowledging that consistently there is not a meeting of expectation or objectives. And then, of course, there's level 1, which is unsatisfactory. So those are the 5 levels of the evaluation instrument. There are, I believe, 7 standards. Standard 1 is leadership in district culture. And standard 1 focuses on the development and communication of the school system's mission, vision, and their core values. Whether or not there is systematic and systemic leadership and culture and climate building in the system. And I want to say this because a lot of times when you have an evaluation instrument, especially with teachers, it's about what they do and how they impact that classroom. It's the same concept with the superintendent, but the superintendent does not do all of these things. She ensures that they happen. She ensures that the facilitation of the process works. So I wanted to say that because when you see all of the items in the document, the first question is, how's she gonna do all of that? But she facilitates that process in the district with her senior staff, and then the senior staff facilitates that down to their staff. And so it's a vertical up and down kind of conversation for support for the district and support for the superintendent and, I said the district, so the superintendent and the district. We all good? All right. I want you to see standard 1, item F. Item F says accomplished objectives as identified and agreed upon professional learning plan. What the superintendent sets out as goals for herself personally are not ignored. That information is factored into the overall score, and that's where that information is placed at item standard 1F. So there's going to be a professional learning plan, but then there's also going to be the opportunity for the superintendent to facilitate all of the information and the rest of the instrument. Good? So if you look at standard 2, which is policy and governance, and that really reflects whether or not there is a consistent and collegial conversation between, I'm not sure that's the right word, the board and the school system personnel, how the superintendent interacts and communicates with the board and with school systems personnel, the implementation of policy, the development of policy, whether or not we are current in our trends and how that relates to leadership with the board and with the school system at large. Standard 3 talks about communications and community relationships, whether or not the superintendent can communicate that purpose and mission and vision that was developed in standard 1 with not only the school system, but the school community at large. Whether or not we're promoting an opportunity for the community and stakeholders to be participatory and to understand what's going on in the school system as a whole. How this superintendent consistently and interacts and promotes the school system. Standard 4 is organizational management. I was taught that there are two sides of the house for the educational system. There's the operational side, and then there's the academic side. So organizational management has to do with whether or not processes and data are gathered about both sides of the house, and whether or not both sides of the house can interact successfully. Part of the conversation we're always having is whether or not, for example, maintenance knows whether or not there's a hole in the floor at the school. Unless they communicate those two items, one side of the house doesn't know what's going on in the other. So it's very important that when you talk about organizational management, whether or not we're creating processes and defining those things that help the two sides of the house not only see each other and collaborate, but make successful outcomes so that our system as a whole is moving forward. Whether or not there's a development of short and long range facilities, planning, and other things that move forward the entire system as a whole. Organizational management has two arms. There's the organizational management and the financial management. And just when we're talking about the two sides of the houses and how they meet, they really meet at the finance table. And so whether or not we manage and maintain and monitor fiscal matters, budgeting, accounting, overall fiscal responsibility, that also plays a part in the superintendent's evaluation. Standard 5 is curriculum planning and development. Now that we have our house, the building, and all those pieces in order to talk about the curriculum, whether or not we have a development of curriculum through curriculum planning, scope and sequence, that alignment with assessment and curriculum to make sure that all of our students and our teachers are moving forward towards that academic outcome that we are seeking. Standard 6 talks about instructional management. So the difference, the curriculum is what we teach. The instructional management is how that information is delivered. So as the superintendent is working through things in the system, she's also looking at the implementation and evaluation of instructional practices. Because we can have a glorious curriculum, just like Mr. Mitchell was saying, when we talk about that literacy aspect with Renaissance, glorious program. But then is it being implemented to fidelity? And that's how that instructional management piece comes into play. Whether or not there is integration and integrity in the instructional practice and delivery. Then there is standard 7, which is human resources management. I want to read ensures the administration of personnel policies, including job descriptions, recruitment, and recommendation. So we're making sure that there is consistency and administration of policies, the development of evaluation processes, and opportunities for professional growth for our system employees. Standard 8 talks about values and ethics of leadership, demonstrates appropriate value systems, ethics, and moral leadership related to staff and the diverse community, and whether or not that leadership aspect and that integrity flows down the information chain and impacts and affects the rest of the school system. Those are the 8 standards. Are there any questions, problems, or concerns? Absolutely. The next page you should see, or the next 2 pages you should see, will be the professional learning, plan and that document. So that's what the superintendent will, complete once she works with the self-assessment, her senior cabinet, and then the board to determine what those, learning objectives will be. And then this document will be a living, breathing document across the course of the school year, because we'll look at the activities, we'll look at the time frames for completion, and then what, success or progress is being made across the course of the year. And once again, this professional learning plan, the information related to this will also be dovetailed into her score at the end in item 1F, standard 1F. After we complete that process, let me back up and say this also. I did mention that there will be individual scores. There will be individual anonymous scores. Each board member will be assigned and identified. So it will either be 1 through 7 or A through A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C, G, okay? So it'll be either 1 through 7 or A through G. You will be given that identifier and it's yours alone. What we've done in the past, we had e-board solutions and everything was electronic, and all we did was manually tally the scores. In the past, I think the last time, we did it all electronically via a Google document and or form. Ms. Smith is going to help me develop something that's even a little more progressive than that, so that the system is ours and it is electronic. And it's going to take out some of the manual, my manual, manipulation of the information. So much less of it will be touched by me once she develops a system that will work. Everybody's good with that? All right. There will be a composite summary, there will be a composite evaluation score, commendations, areas of strength, and areas for improvement. Questions, problems, concerns about the process?
No problems, but
Yes, ma'am.
I'm very pleased with everything I hear and see. I'd just like to know, as the rating scale goes, have you ever had a problem with the 5-point rating scale? With some people just circling meet expectations and moving on rather than digging deeper? Okay,
No, ma'am. You
Good.
have not had that problem.
perfect. Okay.
What, and let me also say this, what we do when we get ready to, because I'll come back to you when it's time to talk about the scores again. We'll talk about the integrity of the process, looking at the data, looking at the evidence, and asking everyone to honor the process. And so that tends to take out some of that, when I'm just mad, I'm circle all 2. I'm just mad, I'm circle all 1. And so it takes some of that out of the process when we come back together and discuss again the purpose and then your responsibility as a board.
And then in the years past, it balances out. You don't know who the person is, but we all get the same results back and we can discuss it like you said.
Yes. All is well?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a report card coming up from Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Holloway.
We want to briefly take a look back at 2018 results. We know we have to sometimes look back to move forward, so I want to bring up Ms. Holloway and her amazing team.
Seems like you have a big bar.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's we can get our cues together. Or, if you have to run out, Tracy or Kristen will run right on, okay?
I think I'm good.
All right. Okay. To our general public, stakeholders, board, and employees in the system. I want to first look at the purpose of this report card. From the state's point of view, it is to provide the public with information that is easy to understand, sparks conversation, ensures schools are accountable for their data, and ultimately bring about action for the betterment of our schools in Alabama. Now, this report card is completed with indicators, meaning characteristics, like in your family. You can have 5 or 6 children, but each of those children have their own characteristics. And if you will, as we proceed through this, I'd like for you to think of our schools that way. We're all family, but they all have different characteristics. And that's how they were scored, and we are looking at those key areas. It's academic achievement, academic growth, graduation rates, college and career readiness, chronic absenteeism, and our new baby on the block, progress in English language proficiency. Now, it says enrollment by student subgroup. It could be very likely on next year that another subgroup could enter the picture, such as special education. That is now a conversation on the table at the federal level. And what we were doing here in Alabama is designing these business rules that you see on these 2 gray sheets, is to come into compliance with our federal mandates, because we know, why do we want to be in compliance with that? We know that's where the bulk of our money is coming from. We know what funding is like in Alabama. And as I tell people when we have our trainings, we don't have jobs because we went to college, matriculated, and got all of these degrees. If I ask you, Mr. Watts, how do we get our money? Because we have what? Students. That's how we get our money. So if the students aren't there, we aren't funded. So it is going to be important, Board, if you look at this, when you see our report cards coming up, refer to these business rules for the determinations made on our report card, okay? The Alabama Unified Report Card is what I was talking about earlier. It's the one you see on my far right, and that is what is seen publicly. The one on my left will be what we see as employees in the P2, in the Ames portal, and it's called the P2A, Plan 2020 portal. And if you look at these same indicators, what you're going to see for a public view is going to give a different number for interpretation. So this isn't digging deeper. This is just saying, okay, you look at student achievement, the indicator for student achievement, and you look at your student growth on the side that is indicated by the accountability system, indicated information. It's going to show you or indicate some weights. So, for example, when you look at academic achievement, you have the subgroups that use all students. So this isn't breaking that down. It can be broken down by each group to show that performance, but we don't have that much time today because that would spark a lot of conversation. If we look at the third column, unweighted percentage weight, that is the percent of students that actually scored a level 3 or a level 4. Unweighted, pure unweighted. Our weighted, which you can see, is the same number that is on our public report card. That is weighted. That is weighted with either the, you get 0 for level 1s, a 0.50 for a level 2, a 1.00 for a level 3, and a 1.25 for a level 4. These were given to us in late November. So our teachers actually in schools operated on business rules from a previous year, which is not reflected in what they are seeing now. So a lot of this was like, oh, well, my God, I didn't expect that. And so that is why the business rules come out, and maybe in the future they'll come out earlier, but that's what occurred with that. The indicator score is going to be the same as the weighted percent. The public indicator score is what you see on the public report, and the indicator points earned out of the number of points to be earned. So we could have earned as a district 20 points here, but we only earned 10.20 academic achievement. And you're going to see a comparison of last year's report card to this one on the next slide. But what ultimately happens in order to determine this grade is simple, the same way all of our children are graded on a 10-point grading scale. So these numbers are added and you get your grade here at the bottom. Okay? Now, let's go to that next slide, Tom. Okay, what we see here on the...
Can I ask you one thing? Why is it under academic growth, where it says, I'm on that slide right there, where it says academic growth, all students in A, and then we go to 77.69. What's the, why do we have NA there? Was that because we changed the size?
Because that's not growth. I mean, that's not weighted on there. And you're right, it's not applicable. Applicable, if you want me to be a little bit more southern. Applicable, if you want me to go back to see where I once were. So, it's, that's not applicable, Lisa. Okay, Dr. Keith, I'm sorry. Okay, so when we look here, here's your weighted score. And this is going to be on academic growth. And I want you to take a very close look at how academic growth works. It is going to work a little bit differently for grades 3 through 8 than it is for our high schools. Our high schools had to match back to the pre-ACT that they took in the spring to determine growth. Then our 3 through 8 grade levels were matched back to their fall Scantron test scores. So this is a transition. This is the last year that Scantron will be used as our summative assessment. So if we're going to come up, we got to come up on this, because the next assessment, and we will participate in that field testing, will come out May 6th through 17th. That's the DRC standard-based assessment that will come into effect next year, testing grades 2 through 8. And ACT will remain in place for our high schools. Okay, So if over here, you see we have our 2017 report card, and we have our 17-18 report card. It is important for you to know that when you have a school with a grad rate, they are talking about children that graduated a year in arrears of the reporting date. So the reporting date is 2018. A year in arrears of that would be those children that graduated or should have graduated in 2017. So as Mr. Roller so eloquently said on one of those news broadcasts, you know, he was getting out of that fire. He said, you know, Dr. Moore and I were not here when this data was collected. No, they were not. They were not here. But those of us who were, we know. This, if you look at one, academic achievement, unweighted, there was some growth from 27.65 to 31.96. But again, you got to think about, you got a few oranges thrown in there, some are naval, some are those little cuties, because all your business rules kind of change each year, okay? Tom, you got to go back, baby. Did I touch you? Okay. Okay, go back to that one, the next slide. Go on, go back where I was, third slide. There you go, okay. Now, so we saw a little growth in that, even with our public reporting, which says in the public report, and this is not just like this for Montgomery, it's like this for everybody. So our public report looks a little better in comparison to where we were last year. Our grad rate, if you will look at that, there are some rules that are made applicable to high schools for grad rate. They are the only schools that's gonna have grad rate. And I kind of think they have too much going on in high school. I mean, they got chronic absenteeism. They got grad rates. They got proficiency in English language. It's no time. What else is gonna come out there unless we, as a board, think about what can you do with this? And we'll talk about that in 1 minute. As I said, there was an opportunity in this growth here for 25 points. You're going to see that that differs as you move from school to school in that little packet that you have. I printed for each of you all of our schools receiving a report card, just this portion of their report card. I didn't drill down because if I drill down on anything blue, then we start to expose student data, and we don't do that, okay? Our grad rate, we got 24.60 points out of 30 that could be earned. That was good. That was a little improvement there. And then this is new. And if you'll notice, our chronic absenteeism, 8.34 last time out of 10 points, down slightly to 8.25. And mainly where that places us is in our secondary schools. And as a district, we know that we have to what? Focus on that. Isn't that right, Dr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because that falls kind of in her office. All I'm doing is watching to see which way they fall. Okay. Any questions on this? Let's go to the next one quickly. Okay. This is a show of two of our high-performing schools. Okay? And if you will note, they have the same indicators. But you can see some things that occurred differently. when I put this slide up in the, leadership council meeting, what are the implications? Let's talk about it. That's what we did. Boy, that's what you need to ask yourself. You don't have to do it now, but you need to ask as a board, how are you going to impact or help with changing this picture? Is it buying more resources that we've had before, we never stopped using? And we probably haven't done or conducted program evaluations to determine if it's really what you say it is. Because if I want to sell you something, it's just like when I worked in radio. I could sell air and do very well, because that's all it is. Am I correct? It's selling air. All right. Program evaluation is one of those things that you really need to take a close look at. You can be excited about stuff, but how are you determining if that's really working? How did it impact student scores? Okay? Now, in this particular school, you can see these two, while their grades, one declined and one decreased, you can see that here, this school had 100% that folded into, I didn't touch it. I just went near it. Okay. Number four, quickly. Go back, Tom and Tracy, you know. Tom and I. Okay. They both have 45 in that area, right? What occurs is, this will probably be 40% on most of those that you will see, because right now we are assessing about 1,700 students, and that's a big growth from what we've done in the past on access for ELs. But if they have in their schools, and I know both of them, they have less than the in count of 20 in testable grades. Now they may have kindergartners, because both of these are elementary. They have kindergartners, they have first grade. Well, in that number, only third, fourth, and fifth grade are included in that. So they must show growth. So 100%, and this school only had what? You all don't know, because you couldn't drill down. I could drill down on that little tab that said subgroups, and I know that this school had one student, one in a testable grade. This school had 4. 50% of these children, 2 or 4. So numbers can make or break you. The smaller your group is, the harder it hits. And so you're going to have to think that way with some other areas as well. Come on, Tom. Let's roll. Let's roll. We almost there. Okay. So, ESSA, the national plan, which I know Ms. Auditola is very familiar with, in federal programs, they don't require the failing school list. ESSA says that you will have comprehensive support and improvement schools, you will have additional target support and improvement schools, and then to come after 2 years of data is collected, and in that third year, you're going to have target support and improvement schools. You know, those schools that are just consistently low performing. And right now with these, you could be on the list this year and off the list next year. That's how it works, and that's what's embedded in this law. So this is what your federal ESSA law, Every Student Succeeds Act. And yes, attendance matters, because that's where that's coming from. And no, when you look at that, all absences count, because they are theoretically saying if you are not at school, you can't learn and you can't be taught. So, excused and unexcused absences are counted for chronic absenteeism. Any child with 15 or more, and as I said earlier, that impacts and hits us harder in our secondary schools, especially our high schools. Okay? Now, the law in Alabama deals with your failing schools. These are the laws by which we operate for failing schools. Failing schools is not required that they publish how they get to determine why this school is on the list and another school is not. And something else I've learned. This is pure, whereas your ESSA report is not. You got to weight it, all of that. This one is pure. Nothing but that pure extract of 3s and 4s. Whether it be lemon, vanilla, whatever extract you want. It's pure, uncut, okay? Now, this is the purpose, and this has been in place since the creation of or establishment of that act. I think this was a revision of the act in 2015. So this is the same thing we're operating out of for our failing schools. And those determining factors are the bottom 6%. So it's the bottom 6% of those that have been extracted as level 3s and 4s. But on the report card, you're going to have some other stuff added. You might have imitation flavor when you add that 0.5 and that 1.0 to those 3s and 4s. That's the difference in the two, and that's the difference in why you're going to see, let's go to the next one, Tom, our list. Our comprehensive support schools have 15, we have 19 additional targeted support schools, and then we won't get this until the beginning of 2019-20. Failing schools, we had 10 on that list, which means that without all the additional stuff added, because you know we all got some kind of blood pressure and we're taking all kinds of stuff. So we can't have it. This 10 schools was left, okay? And Montgomery has fluctuated between 10, 11, and 10 for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm surprised we're still standing. But these are our schools, and we have a couple of high schools on there, a couple of middle schools, or 3, 4. And if you look closely now, in one process, we have schools that did well in the other process and improved and increased. But in this, with the uncut version, they landed on this list.
Yeah, let me ask us.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not gonna mention schools, but on that list, I went through, why would it show on the if you went to the site, the Alabama Department of Education, Bullock Beach School, why does it show an F on one of the schools? It says F, it says 59F. Why does it show that? And
For,
I don't.
you don't want to call the school.
No, I don't want to call
I think I
that
know the
school.
one you're talking about.
Yeah, so why would it put an F, but yet move them back over here? They took them off the failing list, moved them over here, but it actually says 59 up.
That's the one where you and I were.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, now we're on the side.
Again, let's go back to what I just said. This list is pure uncut, no weights, period. So the number of level 3s and 4s are extracted. And over 99 out of 357 came up. So they don't add anything to that. But you got to look at the size of that school. What did I tell you about populations that are smaller?
Okay, get this out of my head then. I'm being very real with you, okay? This common sense is what, from what I've been told from people that I checked with, you had 3 levels, let's call it A, B, C. Well, you know, what I had heard, enough superintendents had complained that we're not really testing the kids where they really need to be tested. So they moved it from 3 categories to 4 categories, meaning, now let me make this up. Now the new category would be A plus, A, B, C. So and that's why everybody in Alabama went up, because you raised the bar one more step up. Are you following me?
I'm following you, but I am going to venture to say that you had a conversation with someone I did.
This was a discussion.
And so, that could have been a person that can give you that kind of information. But the people with whom I spoke, they are in the accountability and assessment department. And yes, we went through 4 or 5 months before we got anything definitive as to what our rules would be, what we should be operating out of, and how this calculation was going to come out. Because that was a question that I said to Mr. Roller and to Mr. Mitchell. If you all want to tackle it, I suggest you tackle it against the rules. Because that determination, wait, let me finish. I know it does not look right when in the public view, it looks like one school that's on that list had more than the other, okay? But in actuality, it wasn't so. Because that other school was smaller in number. Put it this way, if you create a test with 5 questions, and you create a test with 10 questions, okay? Now, if you miss one on that 5-question test, you out the ballpark, right? For A, you down to a B. If you miss one question on a 10-question test, you're still in the ballpark, right? So it is all simple averaging. If you could, and I would show you those numbers in private. If you came to my office, if it's okay, I'd show it to you. They didn't do anything, I don't think anybody favored them at all, okay? But they met all the other criteria, but when you took those 99 students that made those level 3s and 4s and divided the total number into it, they fared far better than they did on the federal program. And that's the way it was explained to me, because I had to go back and do the simple math myself. Because all of that is determined up there. Academic achievement is determined that way. Because if you go back, and I want you to look, they were both on the same page. I knew you were going to look at that. You look at both of those schools, and both of those schools, look at the grad rates and what occurred, and look at the rules. Look at the chronic absenteeism and what occurred. Because they had to earn points in each area. But the bottom line is, the larger your number being divided, that's right, all right, you're going to fare better, the larger that number.
But see, let me share something with you. Mickey, I have, you and I have gone crosswise, but I trust you impeccably. And I think Ms. Breyer would say, I brag about, if there's anybody that knows about testing, I know she and I both said, come to you. You sat with us when I, and explained things to me like nobody's mom. I'm telling you, I get it, okay? My whole thing is, this is not, I'm not just talking about this school or that school. I'm talking about, let's say it was changed. There was not any school system in the state of Alabama that scored F. The system. Why? If they had changed the criteria instead of say that when they went from 3 to 4, if they went from 3 to 4 and it had been an A, B, C, D, not the
Look back
C,
to
B,
that
A, A
room,
plus, they were
Tom,
on
get out that cell phone. Look back to that room. Go back to the calendar list. That's my friend. Go back, right here. Okay. In the rules, Dr. Keith, and it hasn't changed, it's gonna always, it's bottom or lowest 6%. And they don't get D. They have an A and B. One says it's designated as failing by the state superintendent of education. 2, does not exclusively serve a population of students and is listed in the lowest 6% of public K-12 schools, like children's centers. So they wouldn't be on here. But this is saying, what you're saying, what if everybody made it A? You're going to still have a what? Bottom 6%. And they will still be called what? Failing. Based on this?
Not if everybody makes an A.
But we can't change those rules in this forum.
If everybody makes an A, Chairman Wells, I'm telling you, based on this.
But we can't change, this is a state, this forum, this board cannot do anything except go with what's in the law right now.
You can come together as a board, like some other boards have done, and said, this that's not fair, this not gonna work, and you go to whom? Who else do you wanna help you get the money for this other thing? The county commissioners, your state representatives, that's who you go to with that. Are you all?
One of the things, and I couldn't help but notice under the act, that a failing school can be designated failing by the state superintendent. Is there some type of matrix that?
I didn't write it, that's what it says.
Because it seems so subjective.
Well,
We had who wrote it?
The
legislature. And revise.
We're not taking questions right now, we're gonna continue with our, you're welcome to come after the meeting.
This is not an open meeting?
No, sir.
It's not a work session, it's a board meeting.
Okay.
Ms. Vicky, I noticed, that most of our conversion schools are listed on the failing school list. And I look at the act. How, can you tell me about how does that take, how did that happen?
Tom, go to the last one, go the other way. Okay, they're on what list?
On the failing school list.
Okay, now, I have to first qualify, I don't even know for real which ones are on that list. That's conversion schools. So you have to identify that for me.
Let me identify. We have Bellygraph, Davis,
Edie
and
Nixon.
Edie Nixon,
And
and
Lear.
Lanier.
Oh, okay. So, they are on this list.
Yes. And I'm looking at some, specifically Lanier, who I saw made some tremendous achievement gains, I mean, some graduation rates increase there, so.
I can only tell you how the report card works, and yes, Lanier did it. That's all I can tell you. But as far as the conversion schools that are designated for this, and the relationship with them being on this list, and it's not even a scientific formula or algorithm that I know of, unless the people that work with that have put that together and said, okay. Because we are still under intervention, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So, and who makes those designations for this list? Who did you say?
The State Department.
Okay, well, ask him.
Oh, Ms. Holloway, I have one other question for you. Just, what did you teach, or do you still teach?
I taught students in the subject areas of English and history. Taught for 21 years.
I wish I'd
Georgia
taken your
Washington,
class.
Lee, and College.
I wish I had been in one of your classes, it would have been wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. So, Mr. Watts, tell us some good financial news, maybe not, where you're coming up.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. Provide Ms. Hart an opportunity to pass another information out to you. Yeah, if you don't mind, Madam President, let's start with the second page.
Okay?
First Act 2006-196 of the Alabama Accountability Act. It was adopted by the legislature in 2006-2007. It requires that the chief school financial officer carry out certain duties. Some of those duties include, of course, from A through C. Verifying all the receipts of the school district, verifying all payment of funds, so this payment should occur only on written order of the local superintendent of education. And if you would go to the next page, third page, keep an accurate record of all receipts and expenditures and provide such information to the local superintendent and local board. And let's look at number 5 that we have highlighted there. The chief school financial officer is also required to personally notify in writing each board member and the local superintendent of education of any financial transaction of a local board of education which the chief school financial officer deemed to be non-routine, unusual, without legal authorization, are not in compliance with the fiscal management policies of the board. The notification shall be recorded in the minutes of the board by the president of the local board of education. Madam President, I'm sorry to report to you that we do have a situation at Drew Tech High School in which a coach has pretty much deposited funds, district funds, in an outside unauthorized account. This information is still being investigated, and of course the superintendent will fill you in more as the investigation continues. She'll be coming back to you with more action.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, please.
So we are into number 7, which is consideration for approval, and I believe this would be Dr. Moore.
Thank you. So, first of all, we start off with consideration for approval. I recommend approval of the personnel report certified personnel, and I want you to pull number 24 on the certified.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve, the certified personnel report with exclusion of number 24.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by a raise of hands. All opposed? Passes.
Okay, next I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel. And we want to pull S-24.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the personnel report for classified personnel with the exception of S-24.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising the hands. No opposed?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel, addendum number 1.
Madam President, I move that we approve the personnel classified addendum, that's represented here by the superintendent.
Second.
All in favor, a show of hands, please. And that's unanimous also.
I recommend approval of the Montgomery County Board of Education Policy Manual, Section 5.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the Montgomery County Board of Education Policy Manual, Section 5, as recommended by our superintendent.
Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising hands. That's unanimous also.
So we are going to hold on, E until we get other information. So we're gonna move to F. I recommend approval of board minutes for October 11th, 2018, work session, October 11th, 2018, special call meeting, and December 18th, 2018.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the board minutes that are delineated in item number F.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please signify by showing of hands. And that's unanimous.
I recommend approval of the Renaissance Learning Inc. terms, I'm sorry. Can I keep on? Okay. We got something else happening in a minute, so, okay, I recommend approval of the October 2018 and November 2018 financial statements.
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the October 28th and November 28th financial statements.
Second. All in favor signify by showing of hands. That's unanimous.
Okay, now we can go to H. I recommend approval of the Renaissance Learning Inc. terms of service and license agreement.
Madam Chair, Madam President, I recommend the approval of the Renaissance Learning Inc. terms of service and license agreement as recommended by our superintendent.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by raising of hand. All right, are we ready? All four.
What's the problem? What are we doing?
Renaissance, all in favor of, in favor of Renaissance, show by a raising of your hand. And that's unanimous.
Okay, so just a brief explanation on I. We're doing a contract with the ROTC Air Force, and we're trying to work out one little piece. So we've been advised to seek the Attorney General's opinion on that one little piece that we're trying to work out, because she's being two governmental agencies. So I'm just seeking your agreement on getting the Attorney General's opinion on that matter.
Some research first. Some research first.
This is not, go ahead.
Madam President, I move that we grant the superintendent permission to seek, information of the Attorney General and his opinion.
I said,
Okay, all in favor, show of hands. Passes.
Okay, and so the last one, is a decision to grant or not grant a board hearing for RW.
I have some questions and concerns. My idea is, we asked back a while ago for Mr. Dotson, when he was employed with us, to go back and critique and bring things in line so that we would not have this kind of thing, that we would even have to make a decision on this. I know the people that are involved, I know the people that wrote these letters and what have you. And we have 4,000 employees in our system. And if we start second guessing the people that are doing the job that we have hired them to do, and when they have data to substantiate what they are saying is true, if we start second guessing our human resource department, whether we like or dislike a person or whatever, we could be here forever making decisions on who we should listen to, who we should not listen to. And our job is governance. And I think we need to give every department an opportunity to do their job and to have confidence in the people that are doing their job. So I think if we start saying yea and nay after all of the groundwork has been done, we've opened ourselves up to a can of worms. That's just my personal opinion.
I would like to give my opinion. I've been on the board, now I'm starting my 5th year. As far as termination hearings, you can count on one hand how many that I actually sat over. There weren't that many. I am on this board. I've never had a political bone in my body. I'm on this board because I was not listened to. When I called for somebody to listen to me, I was not listened. It made me mad enough to run. I ran again because, and our city called for new board members. It did, and they got them. Because some of us were not doing our job or speculated that we were not. And when you've got employees out there and you can read on these sheets some of the things that I find that could be very true, we have, those employees have a right to have a governor's body. That's why we're here, is when they don't feel these people are being fair. This is how our government is run. We go to that higher source to go, hey, wait a minute, listen to my story. And I think anybody, any employee that wants to come, especially when you can't even count on one hand across 5 years. The way that came across, Ms. Briers, is if we did this, we'd be here forever. Now, I think that's a statement that maybe in your 14 years or whatever it's been on, maybe you've seen a lot more than I have. But our employees in our system, we have, you know, how many, 4,000? They have a right to come before the public or us and have their voices heard.
Madam Chair, we call for
Would someone like to offer a motion?
Madam President, the vote is here, decision to grant or not grant, and I vote,
Just a motion. To, you can give us a motion so we can vote on it.
I move that we accept the report that's given to us by the department. In other words, because you don't put a no motion on the floor. So
To hear.
if this has to be a recommendation that's coming to us you don't make a motion to say we are not going to grant. You don't make a motion to say we are going to grant. So what we would do here is to move to, let the ruling that was made and presented to us by the superintendent and human resources office stand.
Okay, there's a motion that the reporting that has been given to us stand as it was presented. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay,
Yes, but we've had discussions.
okay, so for those who, I'd like a show of hands who want to accept the report as has been presented with no further action. In a show of hands. Okay, those opposed? Okay, that passes.
Why is the motion not, should we, the way that's worded, why is the motion is the motion not saying, I motion that we hear this, I move that we hear what this employee has to say?
We have.
And
I
what
can
we're
tell
saying
you-
as board is we're not.
Well, what I can tell you is after having read this report and being an employer myself, there wasn't merit for me to wanna hear this. I think it's gone through the correct channels. That's my opinion.
And no disrespect, but that is your opinion, as is the last meeting when you said it didn't matter to you what the checks were. It does matter to some of us, it matters to me.
And that's, to address that is public, that is on the public, website, every check. And it matters if you wanna dig into that. For me, as a board member and as governance, I want to know that we're within our budget.
And we're in intervention because of our budget.
But it doesn't matter whether we're in intervention or not. Yeah.
Madam Chairman, are there any other items on the agenda today we need to address?
I think that we have covered them all, except before we adjourn, I would just like to remind that the next meeting, work session is February the 12th, and the next, board meeting is February 26th. And unless there's any other business before us today, I would call us adjourned.
So I'd like to invite the board to stay for a little bit longer, because we have